All right, warriors, this is the last lesson for our unit in psychological disorders, and here we'll cover personality disorders. But before I get into it, let me warn you, if it's ever raining cats and dogs, be careful where you step. You may hit a poodle. Personality disorders. Now, there's lots of personality disorders. We're going to focus on 4, and those are paranoid, schizoid, antisocial, and avoidant. Personality disorders are tricky because if you remember the definition of personality, it's usually traits that are persistent in our personality over time. So if a person has a personality disorder, that means it's consistent within their behavior over the course of their lifetimes. So a disorder in that is patterns of inflexible traits that disrupt social life or work and distress the individual. Remember the 4 Ds when it comes to personality disorders. If it's distressful for the individual and it encumbers their ordinary everyday life, it may be disordered. You got lots listed here. Like I said, we'll focus on paranoid, schizoid, antisocial, and avoidant. All right, first, paranoid personality disorder is the general distrust and suspiciousness of others. The person doubts everyone, doesn't confide with others. People with this disorder tend to be distrustful of others, suspicious of them, question their motives and their character. They tend to perceive other people's behavior as threatening, even if it's not. They're difficult to get along with. They're argumentative. They might be cold. They might be aloof. And they are isolated in their lives. Unlike people with paranoid schizophrenia, people with paranoid personality disorder are not confused about reality. They don't have the hallucinations and delusions, but their reality might be a little bit distorted because they are so suspicious and distrustful of other people. Schizoid personality disorder, these people have no interest in relationships with other people. They lack normal emotional responses. They don't have tender feelings they don't become attached to other people. They believe that they are people that are just trying to take advantage of them. They're easily angered by perceived insults that are not apparent to others. They tend to be secretive, jealous. Thus, they are loners. They have few friends, and they attribute their mistakes to others. They're also super sensitive to things like class and rank and power issues, and they resent others that have things that they don't have. People with schizoid personality disorder are also reclusive. They engage in solitary activities. They choose to work with minimal social interactions. They often appear to be cold and detached, and they can form stable relationships, but maybe not close relationships, even with friends and family. Antisocial personality disorder. Be sure that you don't confuse this with what's coming, avoidant. Antisocial does not mean I don't want to be social. No, it means I don't want to follow the rules of society. It means I have little conscience or regard for other people, and it's serious because it can hurt other people. So these people have been called psychopaths or sociopaths. The label was given to people who committed crimes, and those crimes can go as far as beating up little old ladies to being axe murders and serial killers. And because of their impact on society, the antisocial personality disorder has been heavily researched, but the most of any personality disorders. These people lack conscience. They have no regard for other people, and it's central to this disorder. Repeatedly come into conflict with the law. They show little concern, anxiety, guilt at hurting somebody else. People with this disorder show persistent pattern of disregard for violation of the rights of others. They continue to this behavior despite the threat of social rejection and punishment, the law, and nothing by way of drugs or treatment does any good with them. As children, these people may have been the ones who skip school, run away from home, hurt people or animals, lie, cheat, steal. In adulthood, the person may be aggressive and reckless, have a hard time holding down a job. They fail to pay their bills, they get into debt, or they just break the law. Treatment is hard because these people are usually kind of charismatic, and they'll do what they're supposed to for a while because this is their personality. They maybe are not interested in a treatment. So when they are treated, they'll do what they're supposed to for a time being and say, okay, see you later, we did a great job, and then they just go back to their old ways. The condition is typical for your serial killers like John Wayne Gacy. I'll show you a picture of Ted Bundy. But back to John Wayne Gacy, he was a notorious serial killer whose lifelong patterns of misbehavior escalated to the rape and murder of 30 young men and boys. And the public sees someone with this disorder as mentally ill, as sick-minded. 80 to 85% of criminals in jail have been found to have personality disorder. Charles Manson was another one who was accused of, well, he was imprisoned for most of his life, but he manipulated others to commit murders for him. And then we have Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, who've been known as antisocial personality disorder. Here is Ted Bundy, and I'll have more for you about Ted Bundy soon. People with avoidant personality disorder want relationships with other people, but are prevented from having relationships with other people because of their tremendous fear of the disapproval of others. So they act shy and withdrawn in social situations, always afraid that they will do or say something foolish and embarrassing. The symptoms of avoidant personality disorder are similar to those with social phobia, and people with avoidant personality disorders always have social phobias as well, almost always, but not all. Usually they're going to have 4 of the following of letters A through G, and I'll let you read those. All right, what causes a person's personality to get so out of whack? The psychodynamic explanation is that there's no development of a conscience or a superego. Research shows that children rejected and harshly punished tend to lack guilt. That's what has happened in some of those antisocial personality disorders that I mentioned, Ted Bundy, Charles Manson. Charles Manson came from a very rough childhood. Learning theorists would say that children are reinforced for bad behavior rather than good behavior. Social learning would say that these childhood experiences teach children how to relate to other people. So, social learning, we mimic others, we model other behavior of others. So if you live in a household where there's abuse, that could be possible. Other learning theorists maintain that if we don't have appropriate role models, then we learn to act aggressively. Now, cognitive theorists are not listed here, but they argue that antisocial adolescents tend to see people's behaviors as threatening, even if it's not. And so they use this interpretation of the world to justify their own antisocial behavior. But biological views say that heredity may be a factor in APD. For example, adoption studies show a higher incidence of antisocial behavior among biological relatives than adoptive relatives. Still more to learn about that. And, although with the origins of these personality disorders are unresolved, treatment can help. And we'll talk more of treatment in the next unit. So everybody, this is my last lesson for psychological disorders, and I hope this has been a pretty comprehensive view on psychological disorders. In the next unit, we'll talk about treatment for all of these things, and that there is hope for people who suffer from some of these disorders.